In this lab, we're going to use Gen AI, or in this case ChatGPT, to address the question, what is the distribution of profits by overall profit and by profit margin? So that's the question we're going to try to address, and to do so we're going to use ChatGPT. Usually when I start ChatGPT, I like to start with a new chat, and you can either just click on this new chat or you could just write start a new chat. So let's go ahead and do that. Start a new chat, and that just kind of clears the registers in case you've done anything else today. And you'll find often that the response is different day to day. It is generative, so that means it might not always be the same. The next thing we're going to do is either bring in data or create data that we're going to evaluate. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste the data we're going to use, and we're going to ask it to create a data set. So that's one of the things that a generative AI is good at, is making data sets. So note here, create a mock data set for training purposes. Okay. That includes product sales of a variety of fruit at a small business in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I happen to be there in Fayetteville, Arkansas, or be here. And I want this data set to include a transaction ID, transaction date, product SKU. SKU is kind of a unique number called stock keeping unit that identifies a specific product. So imagine if you had M&M's big size, M&M's smaller size, or M&M's big size peanut, smaller size peanut. Each of them is going to have a different SKU. But continuing on, product name, quantity sold, unit price, total sales amount, the unit cost, kind of like the unit variable cost, and then the total cost. And we want to make sure this is realistic, so we're going to go ahead and tell it that. Now, what we're going to learn with ChatGPT is that we want to be very specific of exactly what we want. So this has taken a little time for me to refine to get exactly what we need. And so you'll want to think about that. And sometimes the nice thing about ChatGPT is you can continue to experiment. So let's go ahead and have it create 200 transactions, and it's going to take a second to do that. And while it does that, we're going to get ready for the next part, and we're going to start applying analytics techniques. So in this case, we're creating the data from scratch. It's not always really good at going out, at least as of this taping, going out and retrieving data. Usually we'll provide a Excel file or a text file that would be able to have the various transactions there. But in this case, we're able to ask it to create a mock data set and get us ready. Now, what we can do is go and check it. Once the data comes in, we can go and see the whole data set, or see the first 5 lines or the bottom 5 lines of the data set, and just take a good look at that. And so let's go ahead and wait just a second for it to do that. Okay, so it looks like it populated, and you can see the various items included here. So I asked again for transaction ID, transaction date, product SKU, so you can kind of see those various items there. And it looks like I asked it to do 200 transactions, so sometimes it might repeat various SKU. But let's check and see, and as I go down, it looks like it's done 200 transactions. And so you can kind of see that there. Okay. And we can also go across, and so sometimes not always easy to move things around, but you can see the various items included there. So it says I created a mock data set. Is it what you want? And if we wanted to add something or change something, we certainly could do that. So let's go ahead and go to the next one, and what we're going to ask it to do is calculate profit. Remember, the question is, what is the distribution of profits by overall profit and by profit margin? So what we want to do is calculate by transaction the total sales amount less total cost. And then we're going to ask it to calculate not only profits but profit margin, and profit margin is going to be how much profit is there per dollar of sales. And so let's just go as profit divided by sales price. Okay, so we're asking it to make 2 calculations as we apply analytics techniques. And so it's going to take a second to do that. And once we finish that, and so we can kind of see line by line, and often would be good to go ahead and check that here. And so let's go ahead and take a look at one of them. So you can kind of see what the sales price was, what the profit is, and what it is per dollar. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get it to go left and right, and so let me go back down here to the bottom here. So here's all 200 transactions here, and now I can see my scroll bar. But for example, I can say, okay, what is the total sales amount? 49. What's the total cost? Well, it's 7 times 4 is 28. So the profit is going to be 49 minus 28, which is 21. And then if I went and took 21 and divided by the total sales of 49, we would get a profit margin of about 42-43%. So you can kind of see the various profit margins here. Now what we really wanted to do is to summarize those and give us a report. And so saying, okay, for all 200 transactions, go ahead and please summarize the full data set and report which SKUs had the highest profits and which ones had the highest profit margin. And you'll recall, since it's a mock data set, every time you do this is going to give us a different answer because the underlying data is going to change. Now, if we provided the 200 transactions, then it's going to work specifically on that data that we've provided. And that's our choice in this case. We're just trying to do this for training purposes. And so we're asking it to summarize. And what do you think a summarize would be? So we're trying to see which ones had the highest profits. And so we have some descriptive statistics here, and so you can kind of see the max and the min would be included here, and the total sales amount, and you can see the max here at the bottom. So the max quantity sold was 10, the highest unit price was 7, and the highest profit looks like it was 30, and the highest profit margin was 60%. This is fine, all good. These are statistics, these are useful statistics, but usually we'd like to visualize this. And so if we're going to visualize this, we're going to try to see it as, hey, let's do a histogram. A histogram is going to provide a visual of the profit margin. So in this type, I'm doing profit margin. Next, I'll ask it to provide a histogram of actual profits. But since this is profit margins, it's probably going to be somewhere between 30 and 60%. And histograms are frequency distributions. So it says how many of these 200 appeared in each of these bins. And so we're going to look specifically at the bins and say how many were there. And so here's the frequency. So if I were to add up all of these together, it would add up to 200, right? And we'd see how many are between 0.40 and 0.425, and between 0.425 and 0.450. Now there's some question there of exactly what the lines are, so we could go and ask it to change the bins, change the bin sizes. So you could say, hey, add them up between 0.40 and 0.425. It appears there were none in this range, but even sometimes getting the specificity as to exactly what's in there is our challenge or our opportunity as an analyst. So next thing we're going to do is actually ask it to provide a histogram of total profit. So this isn't per dollar of sales, this is total. And note how I'm asking it to do this for each transaction, so every transaction. So again, we're going to have a frequency, and we're going to have some bins that say how many are in each group, and those frequencies should add up to the 200 transactions that we'll see. And so we can kind of see how this looks. So here's the frequency, how many. We're in the 0 to 5, looks like none lost. And we could specify what those bins are. We could say, hey, make the bins by dollars, by $5 increments, and see how many. So let's go ahead and just try that and see what that does. Please use bins of size of, so $5 size, starting at 0. Please redraw the histogram. Okay, so you see how we're able to work with it and say, okay, we want bins of $5 size, that's how big the groupings we want them to be, and we want them to start at 0. And so that there won't be quite the same confusion of kind of how many are there. Now we could do smaller, we could do bin sizes of $1. Maybe we'll do that next. but we could kind of see what that might look like. But here's now by $5 increments, and you can see what that looks like. Going kind of a step further, now let's just go ahead and take this a step further and say, hey, what would happen if we did $1 bin size? And so please redraw the histogram so you can kind of see what that would look like. Sometimes you want, bigger bins to be able to see the distribution in general. Sometimes you want smaller to be able to see the detail. So, I mean, here you're able to see there's much more smaller than bigger. But if we do the $1 bins, we're going to see kind of the same, but it's just going to be spread out among the various parts. Now, once we've completed our application of analytics techniques, now it's going to be our opportunity to do some outputs. And so you could just say, hey, give me a PNG or a JPG file, or you could have it describe and say, hey, go ahead and output that, and this is what I want you to label it as. And this is so we can give it to someone else. And so this just kind of says, hey, we can output it, we can save it to a file, we can use it, we could also copy and paste it off this screen and provide that there. So let's see what that says, and it says, okay, I just gave it to you, and I gave you the last one you asked for. I didn't specify exactly. And then it's going to say, hey, you could go ahead and download it. So I could click on this, and you're going to see the download comes here. The last thing we're going to ask it to do is provide the prompts. So anytime I entered instructions, those are called prompts, and I'm asking you to put it into a Word file and to label it as such. Now I could have it output to the screen, or I could send it to a Word file and actually see that. And so you'll note what exactly is a prompt, and if the prompts change, for example, if I say, oh, I need to refine it a little bit further, then I would do so. And so this is going to output it to a file. I might also ask it to output it to the screen. And okay, so here you can see it just output and put it in a prompts document, and that's going to go there that I could download. But just for kicks, let's just see, and if we output it to the screen, and I like to save these, I like to have students turn them back in so they can see what they've done. This isn't really anything you need to fix up or anything. This is the chain of thought. This is how we're thinking through the process. So remember, we went through step by step, then we did a histogram, and we did it by size, and we got smaller, and then we asked for some outputs. So that completes this lab.